See if anybody hops in here. Got a few minutes before work, so little impromptu live. So why not see who shows up? I want to touch on some things. What's up, DF? Tyler was good. How's everybody doing this afternoon? Well, unless you in Hawaii, then how you doing this morning? I'm cooling it. Tuesday. We got Boston College coming up this weekend. Rose, what it do? Hope everybody doing good so far this week. Tomorrow I'm gonna try to do a. Tomorrow expect me to do a. We're gonna do that giveaway. So I'll be trying to do a hangover tomorrow. And yeah, I got some topics I want to hit on tomorrow as well. So that's just something to look forward to. I really want to get on what I want to talk about tomorrow. Today, we'll talk a little recruiting just for this little brief video. We'll probably do 30, 45 minutes today. But tomorrow I want to dive into number 13. And what I saw from him Saturday and how I feel like maybe I was premature on him. He might be turning a certain corner that I didn't think he had. Might be going to a level that I didn't think he had. But that'll be for tomorrow. Don't want to get too far ahead of myself. I want to leave that conversation for tomorrow. Well, we'll talk a lot about Travis. And we'll review Saturday a little bit. Some stuff that I might have missed on the instant reaction that I think is worth talking about. And as far as today, I haven't mentioned him or I didn't make any post or anything about him, but we got news Sunday. It wasn't the news that I know that I wanted or was expecting. I won't say that I didn't want it, but it wasn't the news I was expecting. I think I was looking to land a bigger fish. But we did get a grad transfer Sunday by the name of Bless Harris, offensive lineman, big kid, like 6'5", 315 out of Lamar. I saw his interview. Claims to be a tackle. I kind of want to get into that today. And just, first of all, I think it's a good, anytime you're adding bodies to your O-line, I think it's a good take. I don't know if he's an instant starter. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that this guy's going to come in and play. He is a grad transfer, so it's not like he has a bunch of eligibility left. But with that said, I definitely think he's a guy that's going to hit the rotation in some way, shape, or form. He claims to be a tackle. I watched a little bit of his tape. He's got some things to work on as far as being a tackle goes. Don't like his hips. doesn't bend very well. I do think though he's a guy with you losing Love Taylor. I think Gibbons will be back, but you're going to be losing Love Taylor. He is a guy that potentially you can slide in there at guard. But you're going to have a hard time convincing me that he's going to take any snaps away from Robert Scott or Darius Washington, quite frankly. I don't think he's a better player than either one of those guys. So I don't think he's going to be a tackle. But moving him to guard, where I think next year you're going into it, I don't think you have a direct replacement for Taylor at this point. And I think you were looking at the freshman and thinking, okay, which freshman guard could potentially come in and take those snaps right away? Because I don't know if there's a guard on the roster that you know, Harris might be better than Brady Scott, though, right? So he very well could be your guard starting the season next year. I know you're signing a lot of offensive linemen this year, but a lot of those guys, I would say most of those guys, I don't think are day one guys. So I think Harris is a good pickup. I think Bless Harris is a good pickup. So, but I just don't think I don't think he's going to be a tackle. I don't think he can come in and beat out Robert Scott or Darius Washington. Both of those guys have played very well this year, especially Darius Washington. Robert Scott has had a couple bad games, most notably NC State. And then I believe it was the Louisville game where he was playing on, like you could just tell he wasn't 100% healthy in that game. He didn't look like he could move. But outside of those two games, I think Robert Scott has been very good. Darius Washington has been very good. Apparently Gibbons, according to PFF, take from that what you will, has been like your most highly rated offensive lineman this year. And he will be back next year. So I think Harris squeezes into that guard if we're talking about him playing day one. So that's really where I want to go with. We didn't get who I wanted to get Sunday, but we did make his top 5. What up, Jacarius? Polo says, been watching more the last couple weeks. Great content. Appreciate you. Corey Hall says, on the BC. POLK. What up, Pat? Man, Saturday was the first game. I tried to stay positive throughout the whole game. Did not want to lose to them boys. I think we all thought that, Tyler. When he said 2 p.m., I was like, wait a minute. He released the top 5, but I think you got to be happy with where you sit with Marvin Jones. He's going to explore those big programs. He's going to explore of course he's going to look at Bama, and who wouldn't look at Georgia? And I still think the Oklahoma thing is very weird to me. I don't know what the relationship is there, but they have something there that's intriguing him. And who was the other team? It was Oklahoma, Georgia, Alabama, Florida State, and another team. I forget already. Somebody help me out. Who was his 15? But here's the facts. Marvin Jones Jr. has visited Florida State more than any other school on that list. We already know who his dad is. We already know that he grew up in Doak Campbell Stadium. Like, there's pictures of him when he's this big with Dalvin Cook and Rashard Green and the boys like that. So I think Marvin Jones just wanted some proof that what Mike Norvell was selling him wasn't just fool's gold. And I think when you couple the fact that you beat Miami, and then the way Jermaine Johnson is playing, he is the most productive DN in college football. No one at the defensive end position is putting up Jermaine Johnson type numbers. I think you got to be very pleased with where you sit with Marvin Jones Jr. I don't think no one's putting in crystal balls for him, and I understand when your competition is those schools, your Georgias and Bamas. Texas A&M. Which Texas A&M makes sense. Texas A&M makes sense because he grew up with Jimbo, so I ain't mad at it. I think it makes sense. Texas A&M definitely makes sense. Because I'm sure he has a solid relationship with Jimbo Fisher. I'm sure he does. But I think FSU sits in a very good place there. Listening to Jimbo Fisher the other day, he said, do you think I would recruit these guys just to play against them? That boy told it on himself. That confirmed he quit. Yeah, I actually saw that post. or that interview, and I responded with, he's not lying. If Jimbo Fisher was on his way out of Texas A&M, we already know how that story folds. He would not be recruiting the way he's recruiting. He's at least he's not telling any lies right there. We know. You're right. He basically told on himself as far as the end of his Florida State tenure, which we all already knew he quit. We all already know he quit recruiting way early in the season. So he just told on himself. But that, again, that's not new news. We know how Jimbo left us. And that's why at one point I thought it was possible. I don't think he's leaving A&M. Because if he was, I don't think he'd be recruiting at the clip he's recruiting right now. Right now, he's on pace to have one hell of a class there at Texas A&M. One hell of a class. What up, Maid? What up, Bill? What's going on with you? Tolan and Basaint. Yep. Yeah, I'm hearing good things on Basaint, which would actually be a shocker to me. Tolan is interesting. I don't really look, no disrespect, but I don't really take that one crystal ball too seriously because of who crystal balled it. But the positive thing going for Damori Tolan is he's committed to LSU. LSU has the same record as Florida State. So do you want to go all the way to Baton Rouge and be 4-6, or do you want to stay in Florida? You're an Orlando kid and be 4-6. Not saying we'll be 4-6 next year, but you understand what I'm saying. One team has a coach that ain't going nowhere anytime soon, is closer to home, and is on the upswing. I'm not sure if LSU's on the upswing. They don't know who their next coach is going to be. Oh, and you're losing games as well. So I think you're sitting pretty for Tolan. Basaint is very interesting. FSU has a good relationship with Basaint. Up until Saturday, I would have told you Basaint was probably a Miami lock. I take that back. Up until yesterday, even with the loss, I still would have said I think Basaint probably still goes to Miami. But, and I don't want to make this a Miami, video or anything like that. But I hope they have a grand master plan down there. What I mean, they just fired their AD yesterday. Okay, cool. Which all but means Manny's days are done. You have 8 people committed to you right now. I don't know where that recruiting class goes. I don't know who's a legit left on their board to be a legit take at this point. The recruiting class is all but in shambles. You've all but now confirmed that you're going to be in a rebuild. Even if they get, and all Miami fans, they all want Mario. Even if you get Mario, you got to understand that Mario Cristobal is not about to come in and win day one at Miami. He's going to have to, Miami is literally this offseason, from the way it's shaking out, you're going to have to hire a new AD, a new coach, an entire new staff. If you think that all of a sudden means you're going to start winning games immediately, I got news for you. I'm not saying it's not a good move. I'm not saying that Miami isn't setting himself up for the future, but it's just that, the future. They are now going to be 3-4 years away, if that, even if you get a Mario Cristobal, which I actually don't think they're going to get. If I was Miami, I would have more confidence in, not as a coach, but in who they could potentially land, and a guy like Lane Kiffin. The problem with Lane is I don't know if Lane, I think Lane might be a 1 or 2 year hit there before that thing starts. Lane has a trend. You check Lane's history, he's good his first couple years, and then his programs start going downward. But we'll see how it shakes out down there, man. We'll see how it shakes down there. If they go get Gus Malzahn, I would love that. That would be Miami right there. Please go get Gus. What's up, Canes for life? Our team is really good position right now. We win these next 2 games, we become on. I think. Well, first of all, every game from now on is a big game. But Mike Norvell got over the first hurdle, which might have been the biggest hurdle, just because of the recruiting. And we all believe that recruiting is how this thing's going to get turned around. Well, they did themselves a ton of favors Saturday. Boston College, I still believe, is going to be tough, but I actually think we're going to win that game, and I think it's all going to come down to Florida, and we'll be playing for bowl eligibility against the Gators. And I like our chances in that game too. I love our chances in that game. Everything I've seen from the Gators suggests that they have quit. Like that job's probably open this offseason as well. And that's another thing for Miami is they kind of picked the wrong time to want to fire their coach. I get it. I understand it. It's probably the time. But Miami is in a situation where they're going to be trying to outbid programs like USC, LSU, potentially Florida. Virginia Tech just opened up today. There's a conversation, is Virginia Tech a better job than Miami? I don't necessarily think it is. But they have more hardware in Miami in 20 years. Virginia Tech's got more ACC championships. They've accomplished more in their 20 years since they've been in the ACC than Miami has. So that Virginia Tech job might be appealing to someone. I don't know who Virginia Tech's going to really be looking at. There's a lot of jobs opening up this offseason. Miami's kind of thrust themselves in the middle of that. It'd be interesting to see who they can attract. You definitely got to hire your AD first. I agree with that. Got to hire your AD first, and then he has to hire his guys. With National Signing Day or the early signing period being less than a month away, I just don't know if – I guess now's a better time than never if you're Miami. But that's – who cares? We beat them. Move on from them. Just some interesting developments going around. But I think Florida State sits pretty for a lot of the guys that they're still recruiting. The one guy I'm not too confident with is Coleman. In the biggest game of the year, he decided to go to Oregon instead of coming to Tallahassee. I think that's very telling. We definitely need him. I don't think we're going to get him. The fact that he chose to go to Oregon, and Oregon didn't even play anybody. Like, it wasn't even a big game. Who did Oregon play this past weekend? Wasn't it like Washington State or something like that? Oregon didn't have a big game. Like, you chose to skip out on, in my opinion, the best rivalry in sports. Yes, the 2 teams are down, but as you see, when those 2 teams get together, it's fireworks, right? I don't believe there's another rivalry like it. And you chose to go up to Oregon instead of come to Tallahassee and being part of that environment. I think that's telling, so I think you can kind of expect Coleman to Oregon, which again, when you start talking about Cristobal, we'll bring it back to Miami for a split second. He's about to recruit. He's recruiting his ass off too. He's about to leave all those. He's about to go sign Coleman up at Oregon and then all of a sudden leave the Miami where they have all the 8 commits. As of right now, who knows how that list even dwindles down going forward for them. So I don't know. I think a lot of things is working against Miami in that Cristobal deal, but we'll see how it plays out, man. Maybe they have a grandmaster plan down there. But, yeah, Washington State, you decided to go to Oregon versus Washington State over Florida State, Miami. Not to be negative Nancy, but I think that's telling. I think most people can agree that's telling, right? The caliber of kids FSU had on that campus Saturday, from the Kentucky offensive lineman, who I know a lot of people are feeling good. I think that one's a little bit of a pipe dream. Don't get me wrong. If Atkins can pull it out, I don't even know. I'll build a shrine in memorial to Alex Atkins if he can pull that kid out. Because if you haven't seen that kid looks like he's already 35 years old, NFL all-pro tackle left. Like, just the look of him. He looks like a Mack truck out there. I think that's one's a little bit of a pipe dream, but the fact that you got him on campus and he enjoyed himself, says all I need. It says a good deal, or at least shows that he's interested. I don't think you get him, but you had a guy like him, Kamari Wilson, the safety at an IMG 5-star. He's on campus. It's another long shot, but he was quoted after his visit saying, Travis Hunter is recruiting him so hard, he's giving him stuff to think about. And as we know, Sam McCall's one of the only reasons Florida State he's stuck with Florida State is Travis Hunter. So with the caliber of kids that was there Saturday, for Coleman to say, I'd rather go all the way up and watch Washington State versus Oregon, you know how that goes. Who's our South Florida area recruiter? Joseph Sabbath is one. Of course, Randy Shannon is another. Ryan Bartow is another. We need to get down there more than ever and rebuild our footprint down there. Is that kid in high school or is he a transfer? Which kid are we talking about, Tyler? Atkins is due for a few whale flips. I hope so. At this point, there's any doubt that Travis Hunter will be at this point, there's no doubt that Hunter, McCall, or Duffy are going anywhere but Tallahassee. And I've been saying it every year. I've been saying it every year. Not every year, but every week. Travis comes out. Travis, McCall, and Duffy every weekend, win, lose, or draw, and reaffirms their commitment to Florida State. And yet every week, we got Florida State fans saying he's on his way out. I don't know how much more them kids need to do. So I'm not worried about Hunter at this point. I'm not worried about those three. And at one point, I was telling guys Sam McCall was iffy, right? But I can only take the kid for his word. And McCall said nothing but all the right things. So I think McCall, I got no reason to doubt any one of those three. Wilson said Kamari only knows Bartow. Wilson said only Bartow knows where he's going. Well, if Ryan Bartow knows where he's going, and Ryan Bartow's on our staff, it could be an inch. I believe that when I see it, Rose. I believe that when I see it. I don't think Wilson's going to be here. But, that's an interesting quote. No, Goodwin's a high school kid, bro. Tyler, that kid, I know, he looks like a grad transfer. That's what I'm saying. He looks like an NFL player. That kid is in high school. All 6'7", 300 plus of him is in high school, looking like a grown man. If Atkins could figure out a way to flip that one. But, we ain't even got to go that big. Don't get me wrong. I would love it. But if we can convince Armelia to stop playing around and become no-blooded like his dad, I'd be happy with that. Question. Do you go after a veteran quarterback for the portal just as a backup available? Do you go after someone that can win the starting job? I think competition is always important. I've been on the record previously saying I'm not sure I want to go after a portal quarterback at this point. I kind of still feel that way. I understand people that saying no, you should, because I've also been critical of Travis, right? And this is going to lead into tomorrow's conversation. I've been on the record of saying I think Travis is what he is, but Travis showed me different levels in that game against Miami that, look, Travis will never be throwing the ball from one hash of the field he'll never be making NFL caliber throws. But what I saw from Travis Saturday, that tells me there's still another level. His arm may never be NFL quality, but his decision making can be. And what he did against Miami in some key spots was make quick, critical decisions that I hadn't seen him do before. That last pass, 4th and 14, the best pass that kid's ever thrown. And it was quick and decisive. He didn't sit back there, roll out the pocket like we've seen previously. and do some funky stuff where you're like, bro, you had to play, you just panicked. Nope. He knew where he wanted to go, probably before the snap, which means, in my eyes, he read the defense, saw what potentially was going to open up, took a step up, climbed the ladder in the pocket, threw a dart. That was so impressive to me. And that was not something that he had previously shown in his entire time here. And if he continues that trajectory, I'm not saying Travis can win, he's not a national championship quarterback, but you can't tell me next year, if we bring in the talent around him, hit the transfer portal, bring in solid pieces, you can't tell me Travis can't win 8 or 9 games. This team isn't as far as the haters would want to make you think. If you even look at this year, this team is literally 2 or 3 plays away from being a 7-win team. We've made mistakes. Hell, we made mistakes in Miami's game. That's why I had to snap on some of these Miami fans. These fools talking about, y'all only beat us by 3 with all the mistakes we made. You know how many points we left on the board, but you don't hear me talking about that? We left about 21 and 28 points on the board. No cap. But we found a way to win it. Just eat that loss and take it humbly. But Travis is making the step, man. And I like, we'll see. We'll see if he continues it. We'll see how he plays against Boston College. I think Boston College, I know they got their quarterback back and everybody's excited about that. But we'll see how they play. I don't think Boston College has the best run defense. That they gave up like 200 yards last week on the ground. So Florida State should be able to find something to exploit right there. We beat BC in Florida. It's on, baby. Recruits will totally forget about the JSU game. If you tell me that Mike was able to beat Florida and Miami, yeah, I'll forget about JSU myself. Even if somehow we lost to BC, but was able to come back and beat Florida and not make a bowl game, I might forgive the JSU game in that case. But if you win out, yeah, I'm definitely with you there. If you win out, the growth before we couldn't overcome mistakes to win, now we can, major step forward. We definitely should have seriously, we should have probably scored about 42 in that. Like, seriously. And I'm not even trying to be funny or Travis missed and this is why I say his decision-making is key, but he still has some passes, right? He missed a fade in the end zone to McLean. That McLean whooped the corner right there. We had a chance to think it'd go up, 21-0, and they settled for a field goal. It was right there. Parchment, if he doesn't fall asleep at the wheel on that route, he burns his corner. That's a 70-yard touchdown, right? That's 14 points. Then we had to play where Corbin trips. Was it the play that Corbin tripped? Well, we had a couple plays. One where Corbin, they have a pass set up, and Travis just completely misses like the pitch pass. But if you go look at that play, Corbin's got nothing but green in front of him there. I don't know if that's a touchdown, but man, that's 30, 40 yards. Then you got the counter play where Corbin fumbled. Go back and watch that play. If Corbin holds onto the ball, there's nothing but green on that side of the field. Like, we killed ourselves in plenty of areas in that game, but yet we still found a way to win. Jermaine Johnson has shown the world what this staff can do with better talent. I see us getting more transfers because of the success of 11. Tay says, hell no. I don't know what Tay, what you saying hell no to? What's good? If you want to criticize the staff for the bad, give them credit for the good too. I agree, which I make sure I do. Again, I'm not anti-Norvell, but I'm gonna criticize it when it pops up. But I have no problem praising him when he shows up as well. We may not have a ton of talent, but what talent comes to FSU, it shines. I think we have more talent than people think, man. And I've been on that train from the jump. We just haven't used them. And that goes back to my criticism of the personnel usage at Florida State. That's all it goes back to. And maybe the staff gets the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they saw the talent, but the kids just weren't ready to play, and that's fair. But bro, Omarion Cooper, light years better than Jerrion Jones has shown in 2 years. In one start, Omarion Cooper's light years better. Why hasn't he played from the jump? Well, maybe he just wasn't ready, and I'm fine with that. But we got talent. I hate this notion that we don't have talent. I've been talking about Ja'Kai Douglas from game one because I see it. They don't use him. Whenever they do use him, again, it's not a coincidence. They only use him on that same play. Go check Notre Dame. Go check Duke last year. Look at this in Miami game. They only ever use Ja'Kai on those go routes or those flag routes down. They only ever use him on those. They get him every time because he's burning safeties over the top. He's got speed on top of speed. I've only been asking for Ja'Kai Douglas since game one. We have talent. The personnel use, I continue to question, but to the benefit of the coaching staff, maybe they just saw things in these kids, and these kids weren't quite ready to be full-time contributors, whether it was physically, mentally, whatever. And that's fair. But we got talent. All of a sudden, Omarion Cooper, second, hell, he might be your best corner on the team. Omarion Cooper might be better than Jarvis Brownlee. I would say his performance Saturday was better than anything Brownlee's put on tape up to this point. Let's be honest. Ja'Kai Douglas is obviously your wide receiver that can take the top off of any defense, which would open up more stuff for a guy like Malik McClain, who we all know is talented underneath, but we haven't used it. We got talent, man. The only positions I believe we lack serious talent is linebacker. We got 20. That's it. And Gainer is very hit or miss. Gainer has times where he's flashing very well and times where you're like, Gainer, what was that? Gainer's still hit and miss. 20's been very consistent. You think we keep Norvell? Now, with the recruits we get, last thing we need to do, I don't think Norvell was ever going anywhere. Not anytime soon, anyway. Forgetting that JSU, he had... okay. There's talent, and then there's 11. I'm talking about those type of guys. Well, I mean, but how many of those type of guys come around? You know, like, I get it. Yeah, 11's different. 100% agree. But, like, you're talking about a guy who 11 would have been a starter on the 2013 team. 11 would have been the starter on the 2013 team. 11's in a category of guys like Bjorn Warner, better than Tate Carradine, Everett Brown, Brandon Jennings. Not Brandon Jennings, but what was the guy's name? Brian Jennings. Was it Brandon Jennings? Y'all know what I'm talking about, the DN. Brian Jenkins. Y'all know what I'm talking about anyway. But 11's in that category. Brian Burns. Like, he's in that. DeMarcus Walker. 11 would have been a starter on any Florida State national championship team, probably. So, yeah, he's elite, but those guys don't really come around like that. My point is, we got... I got a phone call, so I hope you guys can hear me now. People always want to call me in the middle of shit. But I even forgot what I was saying. So we'll just go on because I forgot what I was even talking about. 14 is Miami. 14 is all Miami. Should have scored that fourth down. Yeah, not only that, I didn't even talk about the mistakes we made with the running into the kicker, legit call. And again, the fumble with Corbin set up a touchdown for them. So you're right, Panama. Like we also, and the lucky tip ball, like we gave up. Man, there's no point of really getting into it. But the notion that Florida State got lucky to win that game is a joke. Tell him, Jeffrey, I appreciate you. $11 didn't get to showcase his full potential UGA. I mean, that UGA team is loaded. So, yeah. But I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. I just don't like this notion that we don't have talent. We have enough talent to be one of the better, which I would say top 3 teams in the ACC at this point. Is what we're fielding typical Florida State talent? No, but we've seen that this team is good enough to beat teams. The coaching staff has been learning on the fly, but I think Dillingham has gotten better. I think Mike's gotten better situationally. Dillingham's got better with the play calling. I think Dillingham's starting to understand more of what he's got offensively. And I shout out to Fuller. Been one of Fuller's biggest criticizers. Is criticizer a word? I don't know. Is it? But I've been one of his biggest detractors. But his defenses have been, they leave a lot of room for improvement, and I think that really comes because of the linebacker play. But what I'm seeing from Fuller this year that I wasn't seeing last year is, last year I didn't even think we had guys in the right positions defensively. I don't think Fuller knew, and to be fair, that year was a weird year with the COVID. You didn't get time. I got all that. Fuller showed last year that he didn't know how to play guys. He didn't know where to put guys on the field. He didn't know what he had. This year, I can honestly say the plays that have been bust have been on the players. Not because kids don't know where they're supposed to be, or not because kids are put in the wrong position, but because kids even have a mental lapses, or kids just ain't good enough. Like, unfortunately, Jerry Jones just ain't good enough. Travis J just might not be good enough. Like, those are the guys that routinely this year have given up the big play. Lucky that they didn't down the ball at the 1 when I think Wilson didn't want to touch the ball and fair catch it on the final drive. It's critic. There you go. Miami made that diss track about FSU and comes they could. Well, you know. So I would listen to some YouTube Hurricane broadcaster. It really wouldn't give us much credit. I know. I listened. Believe me. After I got off live Saturday, I want to listen to a few. We won't drop names. But I went and listened to a few just to see how the posts, how they were feeling. I heard a guy say Jermaine Johnson isn't that good. He hasn't done that to no other team. It's just because Miami let him do that. And I'm like, really? Jermaine Johnson isn't that good. He almost single-handedly beat Clemson. I don't know if you watched that game. Almost single-handedly beat Clemson, but Jermaine's not that. Like, those were the kind of things they were saying after the game. And that's fair. Everybody's got their own points. Say what you want to say. They have their own channels. Obviously, they're Miami guys, so they're not going to give too much credit to Florida State. They want to blame everything that Florida State did on Manny Diaz. Like, if Florida State didn't go out there and make plays. But okay. Neither here nor there. Neither here nor there. But when I hear takes like Jermaine ain't like, oh, Jermaine's solid, but he ain't that good, I'm like, okay. You're just in denial. Fuller showing improvement. It shows with his style defense. He needs a great play at DN spot. We need that better talent. I think any defense starts up front, not just Adam Fuller, but I mean, there's a reason Georgia is on pace to be maybe one of the best college defenses we've ever seen. because their front four is incredible. Any defense starts in the front four because it makes everybody else's job very easy. So it's no coincidence that Adam Fuller's had a better defense this year because our front four has been light years ahead of where it's been last year. Last year, we thought we had one of the best front fours in the ACC, maybe second to Clemson's. Because the names, but it was all names. It was all hype last year. Kando and J-Rob, who I love those two guys. I'm glad they got drafted, but their production lacked. Marv, we all know the story on Marv, but he was as hyped as any player coming into last year. Durden, like all those guys, man, but they were all just a bunch of hype. And we substituted the hype this year for actual production. With Keir Thomas and Jermaine Johnson, Coop, who was on the team last year, Fabian, who was on the team last year, Malcolm Ray, who was on the team last year, Jared Jackson, who was on the team last year. So, yeah, man. Exactly. We got a good front porch. Is this team likable? I think it's an interesting question. I think they are because unlike last I think I've said this earlier, and I stand on this. I think Jermaine Johnson and Keir Thomas, forget on the field. I believe what they've brought to the locker room is one of the reasons this team is likable. Because let me ask you guys in the chat a question. Last year, we all know what happened before the season. Marvin Wilson sends out the late night tweet about Mike Norvell being a liar and all this stuff. Let me ask you a serious question. Same team last year, but you installed Jermaine Johnson and Keir Thomas into that equation. Does that tweet get sent? Because I don't think it does. All that outspoken talk from Tamarion, Terry, and Marvin Wilson and guys like Warren Thompson, I don't think any of that crap would have ever left the locker room. You tell me somebody was going to step to Jermaine. Have y'all seen this dude? You see the way he carries himself? Jermaine, in my opinion, Jermaine and Keir would have squashed any of that crap. You're talking about a different level of leadership that Florida State hasn't had since a Telvin Smith and a LaMarcus Joyner and guys like that. But I'll let you guys answer the question. That's my answer, though. There's no way. Marvin Wilson was the self-proclaimed leader in that locker room last year, and you see where that got us. Jermaine didn't have to come in and proclaim himself the leader. He just took the role. You remember day one when Jermaine got on campus, what did he say? I'm not here to be the leader. I'm not here to be that. I'm just here to work hard and earn the respect of my teammates. When an alpha steps in the room, bro, you ain't got to declare that you're an alpha. Your energy speaks for itself, and people will follow and listen. Marvin Wilson, no disrespect to Marv, man. I still like Marv. I still think he's a good dude. He was all about boasting as if he was the leader of that locker room. But you see the outcome and you see the difference in how that locker room carries itself now and then. Let me get to the I would really like to hear you guys' answers to that question. Let me scroll down because the chat, I'm behind. Let me read this one real quick. What's your favorite play of the game? Well, definitely got to be 4th and 14. That was a good one. That tackle on Mallory was real good. My favorite play of the game is 4th and 14. I've probably watched 4th and 14 about 100 times since Saturday. And that play Jermaine had that it's kind of going overlooked, where he crushes the sweep in the backfield. I thought that was one of Jermaine's best. Like, he's just one-on-one, and he was able to chase down the running back, or I don't know, it was like a sweep or a toss. It was something. I don't remember the exact play Miami ran. But for him to run down a skill position player in the open field like that, I thought was an amazing play. Bernard says exactly. It was nice to see Doak Loud again. Obviously a rivalry game, but as young as we are, these guys feed off that big game. Tyler says no chance. No. I love the stories about 11 in practice that the coaches tell. I think we have a chance, not because we beat Miami. You have a chance in these next 2 games because I feel playing now. Big Marv was huge too, but I don't think that tweet would have went out, especially without Marv having coverage. That's what I'm saying, Jeffrey. That tweet doesn't get out without a conversation being had first. I know Marv was a big kid. He was 6'5", 300 plus or whatever. But I'm telling you right now that just the antics that we saw last year from guys like Corey Durden. Like, it's well documented that there were specific players in last year's team that knew the playbook and didn't care. Like, this is not me making it up. It's not me throwing dirt on people's names. It's documented from people within the program, or in the know, I shall say, that there were people that knew the playbook and decided that they were going on the field and do their own thing, whether it was self-sabotage or whatever you want to call it. People constantly tweeting anti-stuff about the staff last year. Durden being one. Like, we can go over the names. There's a reason why a lot of those guys aren't. I would say all of those guys ain't on the roster no more. I just don't think if you plug in Jermaine and Keir Thomas into that locker room last year, a lot of those antics just don't take place. I would almost guarantee you that. Marvin Wilson said all of that, got fat back home, and played the year out of shape, then limped off the field quietly. That Ja'Kai Douglas play was great, too. My favorite play was Rooster TD run. Hey, I'll tell you that Rooster catch was dope. OJ, that Rooster catch was dope. That's what made. I think if that, obviously the two teams weren't ranked. If those two teams were top 15, top 20, we'd be talking about one of the greatest Miami-Florida State games of all time. And I still think it's one of the best games from this rivalry, and I've watched this rivalry for years, more than like 15 years. And that game is one of the best games I've watched. Wilson was a diva, so he might still send that tweet. Yeah, but I think some furniture might have moved. He might have still sent it, but how would it have the same impact? If you're not considered the alpha in the locker room, would it have the same impact? Because remember what Wilson said in the tweet. We ain't practicing until we get an apology. Like, he was like, we ain't practicing, as if he spoke for the entire team, which is one of the dissensions that happened, if you don't remember last year. What came out later on was that Marv made that decision for the locker room and hadn't even talked to the guys in the locker room. When he made that decision that we ain't practicing until this thing gets resolved, there was a healthy portion of that locker room that was like, bro, you ain't speaking for us. So that's kind of what I'm going to. Like, you can send that tweet, but if you ain't speaking for the guys like you really think you are, your tweet don't have that same effect. I agree 100%. One of the best from start. Yeah, definitely. One of the best Florida State games I've watched in a long time. Just, you jump up 17. Miami goes on a 28-3 run. Then you come back. Not only do you come back with a big 50-yard pass, it gets all the way to 4th and 14. Literally, if you don't get that pass, it game's over. And Jordan Travis steps up and makes the pass of all passes. And, like, even the way it ended with the spike, like, man, that game really had everything you would want to have. He was handcuffed in that first half for sure. Coaching staff said you either get your S together or find somewhere else to play. And that's exactly what we needed on this team. I agree. That was one of the best games I've seen in a long time. And I've been watching since the 80s. When the best game since probably 93. Best FSU game since UNC 2020. Since last year. What y'all stance on the current coaching staff going forward? Miami's AD is out. Manny will be out after this year. Y'all got faith in Norvell. I think we have no choice, but I don't want to say we have no choice but to have faith, but we got no choice but to see what he builds. His beginning of his coaching tenure has been rocky, but I believe every coach has a win or a moment that propels them to the next level. I don't know if Miami was that win, but it could be. Jimbo had that game against Oklahoma where he didn't win that game. But when Oklahoma came to Tallahassee in that atmosphere and the players he had, very similar to what Mike just did. And shout out to the hot seat Smoke, because he brought this up, so I'm kind of stealing it from him, but he's 100% correct on this. Jimbo had that Oklahoma game, and he didn't win that game, but the energy in that, a lot of people who say to this day that Oklahoma game might have been the loudest game they've ever had. That one or the Notre Dame game from 2014 are considered two of the loudest Florida State games that ever happened. And it's not that Jimbo didn't win that game, but go check at the visitor list of the guys he had in that recruits that he had on campus. And those guys eventually signed with Florida State. And all of a sudden, 2 years later, you win in the national championship. It had a lot to do with that game and that moment and that atmosphere. I think Mike, you look at the kids that he had at that game, that moment, that atmosphere, and you pulled out a win against not any team, but your rival. I don't know if that's the moment, but that might be the moment that Mike looks back and says, or we look back and say, hey, that's where Florida State turned the corner. Typical FSU Miami game, high emotion, intense, momentum swinging like a pendulum, and the game coming down the last seconds. Have watched this rivalry since '92. Always fun. 4th and 14 will be remembered for a long time. I agree. Parchment went from being a player that in the same game had one of the most egregious plays I might have ever seen a wide. The crazy thing about Andrew Parchment is that's not the first time he's done that. I don't remember what game it was, but he had a game earlier in this season. Mackenzie Milton was the quarterback, so we can probably narrow it down. And I just don't remember the game where they lined Parchment one-on-one on the outside. Milton drops back, and we're in the red zone. And Milton's looking for Parchment to do the corner fade. And Parchment's blocking as if Parchment didn't know the play call. And Milton had to go elsewhere. But he had one-on-one on the outside, and Parchment's doing something else. Very similar to what we saw Saturday. Parchment didn't seem like he knew the play call. It was obviously designed for you, and you didn't know that. Louisville was, Parchment has done that before. But to come back on a 4th and 14, and Parchment's number 7's always going to be remembered, regardless of how these last 2 or 3 games play out. Number 7 will go down in FSU history for that play. Parchment will always be remembered for that play. That play reminds me of Ricks to was it Thorpe and Gainesville? That play reminds me of that almost. Ricks is known as one of the worst FSU quarterbacks. Not too many FSU fans like Chris Ricks, but Ricks will always be remembered for that play he did in Gainesville to beat the Gators. Parchment will always be remembered for that catch. And Travis will always be remembered for that throw. I think Coach has another year regardless if he went out or not. Like I told y'all before, Mike's not going anywhere next year or the year. Now, I do think you start 0-4 next year, I think his seat gets hot. But I would say 2023 is the year that if nothing's changed by then, we'll be looking for another coach. That game's giving Norvell some. I agree. That game gives him a little bit of cushion. Yeah, Pope, what you hearing about recruiting front? I think everybody's trending right, but there's no big news. I talked about it when I first came on, but there's been a crystal ball for Bassett, which I think Bud Elliott put in that crystal ball. There's been a crystal ball in for Tolan for a few weeks now. But nothing's really, everybody had a lot of good things to say. I would say they're trending well for a lot of players, but it's not like they left this weekend with some silent commits or anything like that. At least not to my knowledge. I could be wrong, but at least not to my knowledge. Oh, it was PK Sam. Okay, my bad. I don't like that guy. But that's just my opinion on PK. Said Brownlee scares you. Well, Brownlee don't scare me, man, as long as they use him right. I love Brownlee's passion and his effort. I will. Brownlee gets in trouble. If you're going to put Brownlee one-on-one, man-to-man, you're going to have some issues. That's where he struggles. Keep Brownlee in that cover 3 scheme, and I think you're fine. I think you're fine. I agree. Both atmospheres were electric. I agree with that. And crazy thing is, they could still get to 7 games, man. They just got to win out. And these last games, like, I don't know who we would play in the bowl game, but let's be honest. At 6-6, we're going to the Meineke Car Bowl or something crazy like that. We're probably playing an AAC team in a bowl game. That's a winnable game. I'm on the Norvell train. Been on it. We had to hit rock bottom first. We got knocked down, and now we're getting back up. This team don't quit. We're getting back up. This team don't. I think I read that twice. This team don't quit. We're getting back up. This team don't quit. We can't say that about some of our past teams. Who was the kid from Lamar? That was Bless Harris, offensive lineman. When you ask what's his deal, I think he's a solid depth piece, but I don't know. Again, not trying to knock anybody, just evaluating what I see. I don't think he claims he's a tackle. And when in his interview, he sounded pretty adamant that he's a tackle, but can play guard. But he didn't seem very enthusiastic about being a guard. Frankly, he's not better than the tackles we have on team. And I would even go as far as to say him and Lloyd Willis, like right there. Like, I'm not sure he's better than Lloyd. I'm not trying to knock him. Not sure he's better than Lloyd Willis. So, but I think he can make an impact at guard when I watch him. That's my take on Bless Harris. That wouldn't surprise me, Mayan King, if Tolan was trending towards Georgia. Georgia getting all these kids, man. It's ridiculous. I would just like for kids to realize you can go to Georgia and get lost in the shuffle. Why not make home great? You want to go to Georgia and get lost in the shuffle, or you want to come to Florida State and be the guy that's known as the ones that turned this thing around? But, that's me dreaming at this point. Jeff, you're preaching to the choir with that one. Going forward, Ja'Kai Douglas should have about that same play. Let's say the criticism and one of the reasons they haven't been using Ja'Kai Douglas is because he doesn't know the route tree or he doesn't know the playbook. Who cares? If nothing else, you should design 3 plays a game for Ja'Kai. Just tell him, see if you can put him in a slot, see if you can get him matched up one-on-one with a safety, and just say run or go route. That should be the game plan, and just, I don't care if he's open or not, just put it out there and see if he can run under the ball. Like that, Ja'Kai Douglas should get about 2 or 3 targets like that a game. At least one. I would say 2 or 3 to keep the defense honest at most times. There should be no reason why Ja'Kai Douglas doesn't get those targets. Again, you just got to keep the defense honest. Even if you don't connect them, that threat, he should always be out there, in my opinion. I'd be surprised. I wouldn't be. I'd be surprised if we get a guy like Bassane or Tolan. But I agree with you. You get either one of those guys, and your linebacking room has drastically improved. Need to stay in the TP and see which Georgia players come out. Some kid, I agree. But that's what I'm saying. And that's why I look at some of these recruits and I say, do you want to go to Georgia and get lost in the shuffle? Because guess what? Once the season's over, if you don't think there's going to be some transfers, because Georgia's recruiting at a clip where if it's like Bama has done in the past and Bama continues to do, Bama recruits at a clip where they're not really giving you time to develop. You got to come in there and be ready to play game 1. If you're one of those players where you might need 2 or 3 years, well, guess what? You go from being, and there are 4 and 5 stars who need time to develop. My lieutenant calling me. I've been on here a little longer than I was supposed to, but he can wait. What was I saying? I don't even remember what I was saying again, man. People keep calling me and bothering me. Jakai's probably our biggest playmaker aside from JT Corbin and Ward. Well, again, if nothing else, Jakai's our fastest player on offense. Again, if he's not a great route runner, I get it. I don't need him to run routes, Kusami. Just put him on a go. Just use him to take the top off. You have to make a defense respect that. Just use him to take the top off. You don't need to be a great route runner to exceed this level, only if you're slow. I think JT's confidence is raising to a new level with the 4th and 14 play. Real route for Jakai out the backfield once again. Something, again, put him in the slot. I'm not against doing a wheel route out of the backfield either. You got to find a way to get him to, again, take the top off of defense. I would say 2 to 3 times a game because it keeps, again, even if you don't complete them, you give the defense a guy that they have to scheme around, which can open up stuff for your guys like Malik McClain underneath, who that's a guy. I saw somebody say give Jakai slants. Man, give Malik McClain those slants, especially if you got that help over the top. That opens up the middle for a guy like McClain, who is a lot better after the catch than people are giving him credit for. That guy, that Malik McClain, when he's so effortless when he runs. For a guy that's 6'5", he's very smooth in his running. I say we need to really work on having Jakai as our punt returner and can't keep rotating. I agree we need to get a punt returner. I don't know. What I've seen from Jakai on the punt and kick returns, I don't like. He seems like a kid who doesn't have great vision, which is why I've never liked him at tailback. I don't think he has great vision. Receiver, you don't need great vision. Just put him out there and get him to run straight past the DBs. Right? That's what I see from Jakai. Not a guy with great vision, so I don't necessarily like him as a punt returner or a kick returner. But just line him up opposite a guy and say just run past him and look for the ball. I can see that. As far as, I don't know who we got on the team that we really want returning kicks because no one's really flashed. They should be Corey Wren, who was a guy who we don't seem to find a way to utilize him. That should be the guy, in my opinion, that they should be working effortlessly with him returning punts and kicks. All they've done since Corey Wren's been on campus is hyped his speed. Well, at some point we got to utilize it. He can't crack the rotation offensively, but he should be able to crack some special teams. That would be the guy for me. Now he might have vision problems too, or whatever the case, but just work with him. Parchment's confidence, what up? What up, Irv? I remember when Jimbo was here, he was real funny about the receivers having every yeah. No, I've talked about that before. That was one of the problems I had with Jimbo, is that he wanted his receivers to be, I mean, as a coach, I get it, right? You want your receivers to be complete, but we did that to a detriment. I've talked about Sammy Watkins before on this channel, and how when you look how they used him at Clemson, that's how we should be using our speed. Sammy Watkins, his entire time at Clemson, and even in the NFL, because he was a physical specimen, only ran two routes. Go routes and slants. That's all Sammy ever ran. And your occasional bubble. Why? Because all you need to do is get the ball in his hands and electricity happened. Jimbo was so, we didn't see Tamarion Terry when he got first here with Jimbo. George Campbell, guys like that, receivers that we had who could have been just used in a certain specific way. Jimbo wouldn't use them because they didn't know the whole route tree. I think it's more likely that Sam McCall probably returns punts next year. Hunter has kind of been on record saying he doesn't do the special teams. I mean, I wouldn't be against it. Don't get me wrong, Marcus, but I don't think if Hunter doesn't want to do it, he probably won't. But I think Sam is a guy who I've seen in high school be used on a lot of special teams. Open the playbook for JT next year. Well, let's relax on that. But I think JT might be making the proper steps. But let's not get too crazy. We'll ease it up. Year one, very slim, unless he's just way better than I've seen. I think A.J. Duffy's a good prospect. I don't think he's a year one player. I'm curious to know, was Douglas' big play the same TD catch made again? They ran the same plays for him. That's what I'm saying. The TD catch against Notre Dame, last year against Duke, or I think the one against Duke might have been him out the backfield, though. My point is, whenever they send him long, he seems to have success. First time I seen Sam McCall in action this year, he ran back in that. Yeah. I've seen him in high school. Sam McCall's always on the special teams. He's probably your punt returner next year, or kick returner, punt returner. Might be doing both. But yeah, man, I went about 20 minutes longer than I was going to, but it's all good. I work at my own pace anyway. I just want to get that one out here today. But again, tomorrow I think I'm gonna do a hangover. We'll do the giveaway, and tomorrow I want to go in deep on Jordan Travis and my expectations of him and what I see from him that I may have been wrong about before. Should FSU get Jacuzzi? Jacuzzi Brunton? No. You got AJ. Why would he come to Florida State? He hasn't even decommitted from Miami, has he? And I've seen, especially when you got a guy like Parsons, he's a better version of Ja'Cory Brown, in my opinion. If you haven't looked at Parsons in the 2023 class, was it opening the playbook, the coaching staff, or just figuring out what our offense? I think it's a little bit of both. I think you can't deny that on that 4th and 14, they had to open the playbook a little bit, and Travis showed up, right? So I think it's a little bit of both. We've said for the last 3 or 4 weeks that they've learned the strength of this team and they've called plays towards it. But in critical situations, you got to open the playbook, and that's what they did. Okay. But all right, y'all. Let me go ahead here and get my day started. And I will definitely see y'all tomorrow. So be sure to tune in tomorrow, man. And we take a deep dive into Jordan Travis and what I see from him going forward. Miami game's done. It's over with. Felt good. Still feels good, don't get me wrong. But I'm not going to be we're not going to keep, well, feel free to pile on. Remember, they did a whole offseason of talking trash. So I understand every FSU fan that wants to hold this over their head, because that's what they did. As for me, we're going to move on. We're going to look to Boston College. That's a big game because we need to win it to keep the bowl alive. And I think you gain some momentum. Beat Miami. You beat Boston College. That Florida game, that's going to be great because I'm really looking forward to that Florida game. And I'm not trying to look past Boston College because I think they're a solid ACC team. But I'm just really looking forward to that Florida game. I feel like, man, to win that game, another rivalry, in a year where we go 6-6 to be state champions and show that we actually might be the best program out of the big three. I think that's huge for recruiting going forward. This last game was huge. I think Florida game could be just as huge. And but yeah, man, that's all I got today. So it was your boy Polk on 863 Seminole TV. As always, stay classy, Seminoles. We did a good job of keeping our head up all year, and you know, we got a long way to go. I feel like we might be getting there. But go Noles, man, and I will holler at y'all tomorrow. Be easy, y'all.